hospitals and schools in arid and semi-arid lands, such as Bute, Balambala, Kakuma, Ramo arid zone primary schools, using asbestos roofing materials. This includes parts of West Pokot, Samburu, and Kenya Ports Authority, Mr. Speaker. That research has revealed that exposure to asbestos is hazardous to human health and could result in an aggressive cancer called mesothelioma, which affects the membrane lining of the lungs and abdomen and presents symptoms similar to those of respiratory illness. That as a result of the mesothelioma cancer and related illness, 55 countries all over the world, including the USA, New Zealand, Australia, Egypt, have banned the use of asbestos as a roofing material, with Kenya banning its use in 2006. That the spiraling increase in cancer cases is exerting unbearable financial pressure on families and the country's health system, owing to the exorbitant costs associated with treating cancer. That despite the ban on the use of asbestos in Kenya in 2006 and the associated increase in cancer cases, asbestos is still in use in many parts of the country. That the matter in respect of which this petition is made is not pending before any court of law or constitutional or legal body. Therefore, my humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Public Petitions Committee, 1, recommend to the relevant ministries to survey and identify all public buildings with asbestos roofs, including the International Development Association IDA funded primary schools in Wajir North constituency and other ASAL regions of northern Kenya that were roofed using asbestos, with a view to removing asbestos and replacing it with galvanized iron sheets in order to mitigate asbestos-related negative effects and cancer. Recommend to the relevant ministries to develop and implement a safe disposal plan for all the asbestos materials that will be removed from buildings to avoid seepage of the carcinogen into the environment. Recommend for a medical survey to be carried out in all the regions with asbestos roofs to ascertain the extent of cancerous effects of prolonged exposure to asbestos and provide necessary health interventions to those who might have been affected, and make any other appropriate recommendations with respect to ensuring the safety of residents in affected regions from exposure of asbestos-related negative effects. And petitioners will forever pray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Sane. Yes, Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I rise to support that petition by the Honorable Sane, member for Wajir North. Mr. Speaker, it's actually a fact that research shows that asbestos has actually been a cause of cancer, and it's a well-known fact for a long, long time. Mr. Speaker, you know, the Bible says our people perish for the lack of knowledge. But in this case, I don't know, people are perishing not because of lack of knowledge, because they already know that this thing is quite an issue and it's actually quite hazardous. If you look at some of our estates, in fact, some that were built by the government a while back, like a case in point is Kahawa West, most of those houses that were built by the city council then were actually roofed with asbestos. Fortunately, some of them probably have ceilings, so the ceiling might assist. But in the case of schools or hospitals, some don't have ceilings. So, Mr. Speaker, it's really quite an issue, and I think it's something that we need to deal with once and for all, find a way by which we can make it put it in law to ensure that no house that has asbestos is actually occupied, so that we can be able to sort out this problem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Ruto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to support the honourable member. And it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that we have secondary schools which still have these kind of roofing materials, and more so in my constituency, Chicago Boys High School, where I went to school, they still have these roofing materials, and we are exposing our boys, our children, to very dangerous element which may cause cancer. Mr. Speaker, we have written again and again to the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education, but it seems there is nothing that is happening as far as the infrastructure, education infrastructure fund is concerned, so that there can be allocation to ensure there is different roofing within this school. Mr. Speaker, it is very important to call the Minister of Education or the PS of Education to come and explain to us the plan which the ministry has as far as changing these materials in our schools, so that we may not expose the young kids who are in schools in getting cancer in their future. Mr. Speaker, I support this, and it's something of the national importance which needs to be looked into. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kamukunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity, and I want to support Honorable Ibrahim Sane's motion on...
it is not a motion, it's a petition.
Petition, sorry. I would like to support Ibrahim Sane's petition seeking support in eliminating the danger of asbestos in our society, in our schools, in our institutions, in the areas that he has mentioned. And indeed, asbestos is considered globally as a dangerous material that is cancerous and causes cancer. And it should have been eliminated in our country in accordance with actions that have been taken in other societies to protect our citizens, to protect our children, to protect our women. And I therefore support the idea. And I'm wondering why it has taken so long to be able to address this particular problem, which has long-term health consequences. But I also think that there are many other dangerous elements, dangerous chemicals that are easily available and widely used in our country that are also dangerous. And we need to wake up to this danger nationally. In spite of spending a lot of energy and time on expanding our universal health care, we should also be cognizant of chemicals that are going to cause diseases that would cost a lot of money and cost a lot of lives. And asbestos and some of these chemicals are some of those. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support, and I hope the House would also rally behind the petition. Thank you so much.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to stand in support of Honorable Ibrahim Sane's petition to seeking the ban of the use of asbestos building materials in roofing materials. Honorable Speaker, this is something that it's about time that our Parliament, the National Assembly, dealt with. It is clear that nobody is using asbestos for new buildings, but the asbestos that exists as roofing materials are materials that were used in old buildings during a time when science had not confirmed that asbestos causes cancer. This has since been confirmed by peer-reviewed world science, and what remains is for us to remove those materials from our buildings. We find that in commercial buildings or buildings that are for rent, because the tenants refuse to move into the building unless they change the buildings, that the landlords are changing the buildings. But the biggest crisis is in our public buildings. And I can confirm without this that Pioneer Sub-County Hospital in Wasingishu has asbestos roofing from colonial times. Ngelel Tarit Sub-County Hospital has asbestos roofing material. But Forest Sub-County Hospital in Wasingishu also has asbestos roofing material because these were old buildings built during colonial times. It's about time that the National Assembly Health Committee summons the various state agencies, requiring that all of them be decommissioned and replaced with safer materials. Honorable Speaker, I think members of this House will remember that in the last Parliament, I did bring a petition seeking the ban of 267 types of pesticides that have been confirmed to cause cancer, that in fact farmers in the US have each been paid $250 million as damages for developing cancer as a result of exposure to those pesticides. Yet today, despite having brought the petition to our health committee in the last Parliament, those pesticides have not been banned. The way the roofing materials have not yet been banned. It's about time that this House, and I sought in a second petition in this 13th Parliament, asking the Health Committee to summon the Pest Control Products Board to come to this House to explain why they have not taken measures to remove those items off our market, and they continue to fail this time. I had a subsequent petition seeking the removal from office of all the board members of the Pest Control Products Board for failure to remove the dangerous products off our market, despite the fact that they are banned in Europe and the US, but they are permitted to be manufactured in those countries for export to countries like Kenya that are foolish enough to allow them in our market. Yet in this House, we continue to have petition after petition from various members. I know that the Honorable Member from Elgeyo Marakwet recently had a petition and statement seeking the establishment of the National Cancer Treatment Centers. What's the point of spending millions of shillings for treating cancer when we have certain products that are causing cancer right in our faces? We know that Kirinyaga County, for example, has the highest prevalence of cancer, and they also have the highest prevalence of the use of products that cause cancer. Yet we continue to give money for the treatment of cancer. Why don't you start with the prevention of cancer? So with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I wish to support the member for Wajir North, Honorable Ibrahim Sanei, on this petition that this House is challenged to begin to take extreme stern action to save lives of Kenyans. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Member for Jomvu.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, hata mimi nimesimama kuunga mkono petition hii ya Mheshimiwa Ibrahim Sanei, kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo hili lajulikana sana, na nikisema hivyo mfano mzuri Mheshimiwa Spika, nitazungumza kule kwangu Jomvu, ambapo kuna shule inaitwa Amani Primary School. Kuna mtoto mwaka jana alikufa kwa sababu ya kansa ambayo ilisababishwa kwa hizo asbestos. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama wenzangu walivyosema, na mimi nataka niseme kuwa mambo haya yalianza kitambo. Ni wajibu wa wale wanaohusika kuona kuwa wataweza kuphase out ama kuondoa hii mambo ya asbestos. Mfano Mheshimiwa Spika, nikisema kama eneo langu la Jomvu, Amani Primary School tumeondoa asbestos tuka-replace na iron sheets. Jomvu Primary School vile vile, Miritini Primary School vile vile katika shule inayoitwa Bangladesh, ambao shule zote hizi zilikuwa ziko katika athari. Mheshimiwa Spika, leo Mheshimiwa Ibrahim Sanei amesema hata pale KPA tukiangalia mpaka leo bado asbestos ziko pale. Lakini mimi naungana na wenzangu kusema bodi inayohusika na hayo mambo yastahili kwenda nyumbani kwa haraka iwezekanavyo, kwa sababu haiwezekani kukaa kula mshahara wa bure, wa Kenya wanakufa na hali na wao wanajua kuna jambo gani ambalo linaua Kenya na wao wametulia. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesimama kuunga mkono na kusema kuwa Wizara ya Elimu, yale ambayo tumefanya kama CDF, na hiyo pia Ministry of Education iangalie katika zile shule pale palipobakia, waondoe na kuweza kuwalinda watoto wetu. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Thank you so much.
Wanjala. Honorable Raphael Wanjala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with the Deputy Speaker that as a country we need to close down all those shops, all those factories that are making things that cause cancer in this country, especially pesticides and asbestos. But Mr. Speaker, also there is also a problem in the offing, in the lake. Mr. Speaker, the type of the cages that are put in Lake Victoria today, they are using metals, Mr. Speaker, to do cages and put them in the lake. And these cages are metals. They are very corrosive, and these are some of the things that are also going to cause cancer in the future. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree that we should be taking first step when we find there is a problem. We don't wait for a problem to be created, then we look for money to start spending on patients. Therefore, as this petition that is before us, it should even now include the fish cages that are put in Lake Victoria all over, that they should be removed. Because the metals that are put in the lake are corrosive, and soon our people will start experiencing cancer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Pukose.
Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the petition by the Honorable Sane on matters asbestos. Honorable Speaker, asbestos inhalation has been known to cause asbestosis, lung cancer, and many even when you swallow it, it is able to cause even colonic cancer. So, Madam Honorable Speaker, we find that many of the buildings which were put up, I think some of them even during colonial times, when you go to estates in many towns which were run by the initial municipal councils, the houses are made up of asbestos. You go to schools, asbestos. You go to hospitals or dispensaries or health centers, asbestos. I think the biggest challenge as the committee looks into it is that you need to look at it from a general point of view of whether there are still buildings that still have asbestos, and how can we be able to dispose, because its disposition should also follow certain environmental NEMA guidelines. Because if you many people outside there might not be understanding the danger in which they are facing. So that once they are removed from a certain building, you might find that people are taking those asbestos and trying to set up even some houses or build even houses for chicken or anything. And in that process, they expose themselves. You'll also find that when they are removing from, when you remove those materials, you are supposed actually to dig a hole and bury them. And there must be a depth to which those asbestos must be buried to make it environmentally safe for everybody. So as the committee looks into it, I think it's important that they widen their net so that it involves all these areas that we have asbestos, and even if it is possible, let's have a guideline on how we can be able to get rid of this asbestos within our environment. Because maybe, hypothetically, many of the diseases, many of the cancers we complain now might be associated with the exposure to this asbestos. Even brake pads of vehicles, the material is asbestos. So we need to be, even our mechanics, whenever they are working and they are using those brake pads, they need to understand that they should not inhale or swallow some of those materials that are coming from those brake pads. So it's a wide net that we must be able to look at it and look at the safety of our Kenyan population and what guidelines they should be able to come up. We are looking forward to seeing that report from the petition committee in this house. And for some of us who are in the health committee, we are ready to be able to give a hand and see how best we can be able to prosecute this very important matter. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Rendekere.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and I want to thank the honourable member, my friend Sani. This issue of asbestos, Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, we have 2 hospitals whose roofs are asbestos. Mr. Speaker, we have petitioned the Minister of Education and Minister of Health as a community of body, and nothing seems to be taking place. Mr. Speaker, our Deputy Speaker said that Kirinyaga has the highest number of cancer cases. I want to dispute that statement and substitute that Meru has the highest cases of cancer, if not number 1, number 2. And these are associated, 1, by the chemicals that's applied in the farms. They are associated with these kind of buildings because we have schools, we have hospitals, we have large-scale farmers who are using toxic chemicals, and any attempt by the Department of NEMA to take up this matter has been thrust by corruption. Mr. Speaker, this issue of cancer is very dangerous in the society. Mr. Speaker, we have sung about cancer for a long time, and because we are now identifying the causes of cancer within our communities, it is the high time the department or the ministries involved to come together and form a government agency to study and make proper recommendations. Mr. Speaker, through this petition, I know there are some comments that are going to come from there, observations and recommendations.